up and shuffling up. We're going to be starting on Pioneer this time, and we have Carter Steichen on the left-hand side of your screen playing Niv to Light, and Connor Mullally on the right-hand side of your screen playing Is It Phoenix. This Niv to Light deck has been picking up a lot of steam as of late over the past couple of weeks, ever since the release of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Brought
Hmm.
a couple key new introductions and a few cards that are in Carter's deck list here. I know you brought up in the interim, excuse me, rather, was
Hmm.
Pillage the Bog. Kind of talk to me about that card.
Yeah, Pillage the Bog from Outlaws of Thunder Junction is just a sweet one, right? Not to mention, we'll start with the art because the art is just cool if you're someone who
Mhm.
cares about that. But look, moving beyond that, it fits into so many decks. You plot the card if you want, you can get it for free. But looking at the top X of your library, where X is twice the number of lands, it scales into the late game. But even as your 2 mana play, right? You can play it and you're going to look at 4. That's pretty good. And then you can just plot it for later so you can get around hand disruption. You can play around a lot of things with it. And if you don't know what you need on turn 2, wait until it's free to cast on turn 8 when you definitely need something specific and you can look at a whole bunch of cards to get it. Yeah. So Pillage the Bog is a very sweet inclusion basically wherever.
Right. Yeah, it's perfect if you're missing land drops, really good top deck later on, and it's hard to find that balance. It's hard to find a card that's good early and late, as well
Hmm.
as good as Pillage is. Another card that I want to shout out here from, I guess, technically Outlaws of Thunder Junction, even though it's from the big score, is Ancient Cornucopia. This is a
Yes.
card that, if we can get this up on the screen, it's a card that a lot of some standard versions of ramp decks have been playing. I've even seen, there have been different variations of the Niv deck, but this is 2 and a green. It's an artifact. When you cast a spell that's one or more colors, which happens to be 99% of the Niv deck, you gain a life for each of that spell's colors, and it's a mana rock as well. So it's perfect because it helps stabilize against the aggressive decks. It curves you into that turn 4 Bring to Light, which is
Hmm.
very, very important. You have Sylvan Caryatid, as you see on the battlefield, and just a very, very powerful card that you cast something like a Niv and gain 5 or anything like that. It just really helps you stabilize.
Yeah, we talked earlier too in standard even about how much incremental life gain can matter. That's always something that's mattered as well when it comes to say limited formats, and it's just something that when it works its way into constructed, it can turn out to be quite big. And Ancient Cornucopia is great at that. I mean, you look at the card and you think, oh, it's a commander card. You gain life for your 5 color commanders. Blah blah blah. That's really neat. But what it actually is a ramp spell with upside in this deck along with Sylvan Caryatid, where it doesn't really get interacted with via the lightning bolt type spells, right? All the various removal that people play. Well, that's not really going to work against your artifact, nor is it going to work against a hexproof Sylvan Caryatid. And that really gives this deck the ability to curve out that Niv earlier, because if you do use your removal on Niv Mizzet, if you've played Niv Mizzet on turn 4, the value you're going to get off of it is so enormous that it's probably going to snowball you for the rest of the
Right. And just kind of general composition as far as the Niv deck is concerned, it is, it says Niv to Light on the deck list. It's more of a to light than a Niv deck because, there are only 2 copies of Niv Mizzet Reborn along with
game.
one Niv Mizzet Supreme. But really, this deck is, I guess you could call it, really, it's just a control deck, right? There's a ton of removal. You have Leyline Binding, Vanishing Verse, Lightning Helix, a lot of sweepers that you can tutor for off Bring to Light. And then your card advantage comes from Up the Beanstalk and Fable the Mirror Breaker. And then you're kind of just, a lot of times with Niv Mizzet, it's a lot of people think of this card where it's like, oh, this flashy, 6/6, draw 10 cards. But a lot of times in this Niv deck, it usually only draws like 2, maybe 3 cards tops. And that's just kind of okay.
Yeah, you talked about Up the Beanstalk. That's one of the huge ones, right? So it just makes all of those plays even better, no matter what you find off of it. But here we go, Vanishing Verse. Going to try to take out the Ledger Shredder, and we're going to run into thinking about it over on Connor's side. But yeah, I was going to say this is basically an ideal start over here, or very close to it for Carter. Just kind of making your lands, making your mana, making your card advantage, and facing down no Phoenixes at all. Pretty good spot to be.
Yeah, I think Connor took a couple of mulligans there. And you see Connor actually put that Galvanic Iteration up to the front. So
Hmm.
he'd cast the Shredder and was thinking about just using the Galvanic Iteration to trigger the Shredder and just cycle. But, chose against it. I think looks like iteration couple lands. And this Niv is, Niv's going to
Oh.
draw a card off of the Beanstalk and we'll see how many cards. I predicted 2.
Here
Let's
we
see if I
go.
was right.
Wow, look
Only
at
one.
that. Okay, just a cycle, just a cycle. A low roll, if you will, on the Niv Mizzet Reborn there for Carter, but I'm not sure it's going to matter. He seems to be in a pretty decent spot here, in control of this game in terms of engines, at least. So Connor gonna have to put something together, and I guess Treasure Cruise is a pretty good way to begin. Although tapping out for it means that he's probably not going to be doing anything too explosive quite yet.
Yeah, and honestly, the most important part, like the most important number on Niv, is not in this matchup, not the number of cards it's hitting. It's the six in the bottom right hand corner. Because if you look at Connor's deck
Hmm.
list, the main removal spell here is Lightning Axe. There's 4 copies of that, and that only deals 5 damage. So
Right.
at the bare minimum, Connor is going to need to pair that with something else. Could be a Galvanic Iteration, could be another red card, another red removal spell, but is not going to be able to trade, one for one with that Niv at all.
Yeah, and these are all things to keep in mind moving forward. Perhaps for that second game, this one looks like it might be swinging quickly out of reach for Connor as Carter actually just deploys an Omnath. Go ahead and gets a land, gets some triggers off of Omnath, really just showing off the power of the Niv Delight deck right now. Just playing all of these really, really strong 4 or 5 mana spells.
Corbin, I feel like I've been lied to. They said it was okay to have Omnath and Pioneer because we didn't have fetch lands, but Carter just played a fetch land, so I
You're
don't know.
not wrong. The fetch occurred, and you know what? They print other cards that do similar things. Right? We've seen the Maestro's lands, and I'm sorry, the Nuka Pina lands over in Standard. Who knows?
See, a free the fake cast. Okay, there's an Arclight Phoenix. That I mean could be the start of something here for Connor. Trying to think of the position that Connor is in. How do we get out of that at this point?
Yeah.
It's probably going to involve something like Temporal Trespass plus Galvanic Iteration.
Hmm.
You would probably imagine that Connor's not going to be able to do all of this in one turn. Going to need that is kind of the end game that this Phoenix deck is playing towards, where you copy your next spell, you cast Temporal Trespass, take a couple of extra turns. If Connor has enough mana, you could even see something like iteration plus flashback iteration, and then I can't even count how many turns that is. But there's a Phoenix coming back here. But yeah, that's probably what Connor is going to be playing towards at this point.
Yeah, well explained, especially since there he goes for double prankster, where you were able to put a bunch of cards into the graveyard, but was only able to find one bird off of that, right? So I was thinking he was probably hoping for obviously as many as you can get, but if you get two, you can really start to change maybe how blocks work or the clock if you want to start doing that. But was just trying to buy time by getting as many phoenixes into play as possible. Only gets the one, and that means shields are now down. Carter untaps, has a lot of options, and looks like it might be Leyline Binding to answer that one arc like Phoenix.
Small victories here for Connor, though. We did get the Spell Pierce, our opponent who has 7 lands in play, so we'll take those. We'll take those.
Left it open. Didn't leave it open not to cast it.
Yeah. Oh God, Yorion, blink the Omnath
Wow.
and the Niv Mizzet, and draw a card off Beanstalk and blink the Beanstalk. I don't even know. I cannot explain. I cannot count how many cards the Carter is going to draw this turn. Can't count that high. Just a grip full of cards here. A couple of Cycle Lands, Hallowed Fountain. Yeah, we're at 22. We could pay a little bit of life. No big deal.
Everything you wanted on this one, and they'll get them all come back. Okay, well, here we go. Triggers across the board. Looks like we're gonna have an up the beanstalk trigger. We're gonna have a nib trigger. We're gonna have all right, here we go. So it begins. Looks like we're counting out 10 cards to Niv Mizzet. What a great start to this match if you're Carter, right? You're getting pretty late into this tournament. There's 7 rounds, and here we are in round 6. This all matters quite a lot. So getting your team on the board here would be huge, especially since it looks like Piper Powell on Gogar Yawgmoth took down Aiden Brantley on Amulet Titan in the modern match, at least in the first game.
Oh yeah. This Niv, by the way, Corbin, above
Hmm.
average. This one hit 3. So
Okay, well, you know what? You are,
evened it out.
yeah, 2 is what you said, and 2 is the average where we were at in the match.
Carter's going to discard. I have too many cards in hand. Too many resources. I don't know what to do with all these cards. We're discarding Deadly Cover Up against the Arclight Phoenix deck. Well, I guess there's no Phoenix in the graveyard, so it's fine. We're
Yeah,
just
I
we
don't,
still had all these, you know.
this one might not be long for this world. Connor has a ton of cards, but as is it Phoenix decks sometimes do, most of those cards don't really do anything. They find cards that do stuff, but you've got a lot of work to do here, and it's got a long way to go. So instead of trying to just immediately start cycling, we're going to go for the picklock and
Still
prankster
no
to put
phoenixes.
cards into the graveyard. But you said it, no phoenixes.
Yeah, Connor really needs to try to set up the. I think it needed to hit a temporal trespass and go iteration. Unless, do we have the trespass in
Whether we
hand?
got it.
Okay, okay.
Well,
Hold.
yeah. It would have been huge if he would have been able to hit a bird or two there, right? A phoenix, even if he lost his last phoenix in combat, but instead that phoenix got exiled, so it won't be coming back. So this is now 2 turns stacked up for Connor playing commander over here. But no phoenixes to go. But hey, we've got a turn now, mana, and now all of those cantrip spells. Try to see how many phoenixes you can get in play this turn to start attacking next to try to end the game over the next turn or two, which is what you have.
Yeah, the other big issue here is that even if Connor can find some flyers like Phoenixes to be able to attack with, there's two flying bodies on the other side of the battlefield, right? Then the
Hmm.
Yorion, which is a 4/5, doesn't die to the fiery impulse, and then the Niv, as we mentioned before, requires two cards just to even if you have Lightning Axe, you need Axe plus something to be able to take care of the Niv. So it's going to be hard, even if Connor can find, say, two or three Phoenixes, to be able to get the Phoenixes into play and remove both the Niv and the Orion. Because, like you said, we only have two turns after this, and you
Yeah.
need to get a lot of power in play to be able to threaten lethal over the course of those two turns.
All right, here we go. Treasure Cruise. Draw 3.
Yeah. Now, in rare circumstances, sometimes Phoenix does play two copies of Trespass. I will note there is only one in Connor's deck, so that one Trespass is, now that it's gone, it's gone for good. We don't have another copy of that. So
Yeah, especially with the iteration, it was the one card that Connor was able to keep in his graveyard from all of that, which it does have flashback for 3 mana. So that's going to be an option available. Connor now looking like is about to move to what would be his last turn, I believe. So gonna have to find something very soon here.
now it's been a while since we've last gone since Carter had a turn, but I remember I feel
Mm,
like the Niv hit a Vanishing Burst, I think, but I can't remember 100%. So there's the ley line binding too
yeah,
here for Carter. So I think there still might be a Vanishing Verse, but the Carried cannot tap for mana because it was returned, but it was flickered
correct.
by the
Yeah.
Orion. So
Yeah, but that will keep at least some of the card draw away, getting rid of that Ledger Shredder. A second one arrives, and there is an arc like Phoenix into the graveyard for Connor.
okay, so this is Connor's last turn, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah, Connor's gonna
and
pick it up.
it sure is, isn't it?
Literally the last turn.
All right. Well, Carter Steichen takes it down with Niv to light in game one over Connor Mullally. And then the middle match, Piper Pow on the modern, one with Golgari Yawgmoth over Amulet Titan for Baden Brantley. And in the standard, Grayson Nemitz, Will Kruger, teamer analyst in the hands of Grayson, is up a game. So it looks like we're probably going to head over to modern here, where we have Piper and Aiden hopping into the second game. Aiden on the play with Amulet Titan and is leading off with looks like a couple of good lands and the all important Amulet.
Yep, and Piper leading off. No one drop here for Piper, just a couple of lands. See what she has access to. Let me take a look at the deck lists here. I want to look at the sideboard. So if you look at Piper's sideboard, cards that you would consider bringing in against Amulet Titan, there's a couple of Pick Your Poisons, couple of Force of Vigors, and a Fulminator Mage are kind of the standouts for me. So that's what Piper's working with in potential in the post board games. As far as the matchup goes, I haven't played this matchup a ton. I think the general consensus is that Amulet is slightly ahead, but I'm not 100% positive. So a little bit surprising to see Piper pick up game one here.
Yeah, and Piper in this play and turn two here just fires off Boseiju on a bounce land of
Love
Aiden's.
it.
No real value if you look at it that way. But on the other hand, it's called a strip mine in this case, and that's taking 1 mana away from somebody can be pretty good when that deck needs all of its mana. So nice heads up play there by Piper. Doesn't have any um, further pressure board presence at this moment, unfortunately. So Aiden is still going to be doing some tricks here. And there goes bounce land, add mana, pick it up, add some more mana, play Dryad of the Elysian Grove. That unlocks another land drop, which will be that Cruel Turf. Untaps the Amulet of Vigor, adds 2 mana, picks it right back up. Here we
So
go. Keep
too
going.
many
I
land
guess
drops.
Spelunking is next, which will allow another land into play.
Yeah,
Spelunking is
and
such a fun addition to basically every deck it goes in. And I understand it's probably just Amulet and constructed, but what a fun card. It's big in standard as well, but what a
oh
fun
yeah, yeah, we saw it in the teamer analyst deck in the last round too.
card. Mhm.
What's funny about the spelunking interaction here is it actually kind of weirdly doesn't necessarily work the way you want it to with Amulet, where Spelunking says lands you control enter the battlefield untapped, and
Yeah.
Amulet specifically says if a I can't remember the exact wording. I get it pulled up, but I think
It
it's if
untaps it once it comes into play. It creates a
right.
trigger, which is why the
Yes.
bounce lands work the way they do with it.
Exactly. So because spelunking puts the permanents into play untapped, you don't actually have like you can't choose between the amulet and the spelunking because the spelunking already has them come into play untapped. So it's kind of a weird, wonky ruling situation there with the amulet and the spelunking. Doesn't come up too often, but there are
Yeah.
both on the battlefield here, so it could come up
Well,
this game.
yeah, you say, well, why does it matter? It's the same thing, right? Well, no, if you have multiple amulets, they create multiple triggers, which allow you to add the mana several times in a row, which you actually can't do when Spelunking just has it in and play untapped originally.
Okay, well, I'm
Ooh,
actually
look at that
being
play.
I have confirmed with Twitch chat that apparently you can choose to have the
Oh,
man at the
well.
battlefield tap. I actually didn't know that, so good to know. Thank you, chat. So never mind. But we see Force of Vigor taking care of both of them. So as a matter of fact, it's not going to matter because neither of them are on the battlefield anymore.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, the point is you can do all those tricks with Amulet that you cannot necessarily do with Spelunking. Uh, but yeah, you're right. Both of them gone huge Force of Vigor and followed up with another play there by Piper, just deploying all of the hate right now.
Yeah, Rex Sage into Force of Vigor, just blowing up all of Aiden's stuff. But one important thing to note here is that Piper does not, doesn't really have any combo pieces in play. There's no Young Wolves, no Yawgmoths, none of that stuff. And, there is quite a few lands on the side of Aiden over here. So Aiden might just be able to say, okay, well, I don't need an amulet. I'm just going to cast a Primeval Titan and say, make a deal with it.
Yeah, certainly, because that was a big turn for Piper, and Piper did not have a big play necessarily. The wall of roots coming down is not really going to impact the board at all. Looks like a Boros Garrison over here for Aiden. That is one of the key ones, of course, giving the mana for the activations that you need. But we'll see. You said it. I'm not sure that there's much else going on over here. Just a pass back. We've got an 05 staring down an 03. Modern.
Corbin, I'm going to put you to the test. That
Oh no.
the fancy land that's in play for Eden. Do you have any idea what that could be? I think it might be a Lush Portico. I think.
Green white is where I was going to go with that one. That
Okay.
seems the most likely to me as well. My feed is not perfect, but that's what I. You had to ask me. That's what I'd say.
All right. Because at first I thought it was the full art Celestia Sanctuary, but then when I saw Aiden pick it up last turn, I was like, well, that wouldn't make a lot of
No,
sense.
and
So
there's the Celestial Sanctuary in the graveyard. That's a different one. It is in fact a lush portico. Good eye.
there you go.
There we
All right.
confirmation from the floor.
So that is currently 6 mana in play for Aiden. 6 is the magic number here for the Primeval Titan deck. So see if Aiden has something along those lines. And, like I mentioned, for Piper, really needs to try to get a combo piece in play. This is the turn that she would love to just slam a Yawgmoth here because
Hmm.
even if Aiden taps out for Primeval Titan, without something like an Amulet or a Dryad already in play, not that scary. It's just a 6/6, get some stuff for next turn. So if Piper has a good play this turn, Aiden taps out next turn, then maybe she can set up for a kill the following turn.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that both players sort of had a window to do theoretically something last turn. I think Piper has more options now, but and neither player did anything sort of game breaking. Right? There was no wild ramp plays out of Aiden. There were no combo plays out of Piper. And just kind of a sort of an interesting and a lot of flurry at the beginning of the game. Then a little bit of a lull, but I think now Piper going into the tank here with access to 5 mana at a minimum might be about time to make a move on this game.
Yeah, didn't quite get a good look at the grip for Piper, but yeah, really wants to play something like okay, I see a chord. which awkward. Ideally, we'd want to chord for a Yawgmoth, but we have 4 lands and 2 creatures. Oh, the Walroots. Okay, so we can't chord for Yawgmoth if we want to. So that is something that is on the table for her. I wonder if she's thinking about getting a Fulminator Mage. Could potentially Fulminator, say, the Gruul Turf and keep Aiden two more turns away from playing a Primeval Titan. That could be
Well,
something as well.
yeah, you have to think. Okay, Aiden has 3 cards in hand. You know probably what 1 or 2 of them are, but I haven't kept track of what's been bounced back to hand per se. But Piper is saying, okay, well, it can't be anything terrible for me, but at the same time, you do have access to 6 mana next turn, and maybe that is more important to keep you off of that than it is for me to get Yawgmoth into play just to start the place. But here we go. The decision is coming because here comes Horde of Calling. X equals 4.
Yep. 4 with the counter from Walroots. So if X equals 4, you have to presume this is going to get a Yawgmoth.
Hmm.
I think that the decision to main phase it was that she wants to. I think I'm guessing she's going to sacrifice some stuff now to try and find a young wolf, and that's why she chose to do it main phase and leave that extra mana untapped. So that would be my guess as to what she's going for here. Sacrifice the 2 creatures, maybe find a wolf, and that can get you a
Hmm.
little bit deeper. So
Yep. Heads up play there by Piper to think that one through, figure out what is this going to look like after I resolve this spell, and go from there. So here we go. Yawgmoth in play. Couple of creatures to sacrifice for fodder. The namesake of the deck in play. Generally where you want to be, but this is not by any means a slam dunk for Piper because without any combo sort of lined up in play, and without a ton of mana available in response, Aiden might have a window when he untaps.
yeah, the other thing I want to check is how many copies of Besage are in Piper's deck list. Looking at her deck list, there are 2 in the main deck. So
One
she could
more.
also be digging for the second Besage here because with the legend in play, that
Hmm.
Besage gets discounted to 1, and that Besage could potentially blow up that Gruul Turf
Right.
to make, maybe make Aiden farther another full turn away from casting that Titan.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, if that Gruul Turf goes away, Aiden does not have access to double green without an untapped source either,
Yeah, I guess
right?
you could get he can get a forest off the Besage though, right?
Oh, sure, you're right. Yes, yes, yes.
And then we forest Portico, but
All right,
still would
so
need an untapped land.
yeah, you're right. So okay, so Piper digging down with the Yawgmoth does not look like she found anything that's going to deploy immediately. So here we go. Aiden untaps with a window and an amulet off the top.
Hmm. Okay, and there's an untapped land, so you could even go Amulet first, then untapped land, then Primeval Titan. I wonder if there's. Okay, we're gonna play the land. Yeah, here it
Okay.
is.
Yeah. Titan hitting the battlefield. Does Piper have any response? She does not. Aiden picks up the deck, and here we go. What a huge draw that amulet was because it made this Titan play from something that was good to something that was extremely good. Because this is going to be very possibly a massive turn for Aiden.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite lethal from this position with only 1 amulet, so we're gonna go
Right.
ahead and copy the Boros Garrison. That's gonna be able to activate the Slayer Stronghold, haste up the Primeval Titan attack for 8, but then it kind of tapers off from there. I guess you can get something like a Teleria West and a Simic Growth Chamber, pick up the Teleria West for next turn. But the awkward part about that is you can't use the Teleria West at instant speed, so you can't say float the mana and then transmute still in combat. So wouldn't even be able to transmute. It looks like we're going for a potential of Valakut here. Valakut and a Vestige. Wonder why we're getting the Vestige.
It is interesting. Yeah, chat's asking the Vesuva is, I believe, what was picked up to the bounce trigger.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's in hand. The vestige comes into play. The Valakut comes into play. Okay. Well, this. You're right. This is an interesting line. This is not just say my Titan's going to, kind of end the game or anything. This is a really interesting spot. Does Piper have a line from here? What is Piper looking for to try to dig out of this?
So Piper really wants to try and set up the traditional kind of Yawgmoth kill with 2 undying creatures and Blood Artist. So, see if she can assemble those 3 cards. Other than that, Orcish Bowmasters is a way to generate multiple bodies to get some more cards off of Yawgmoth. Here's the Young Wolf.
Young
That's going to
Wolf.
put a counter on the Primeval Titan. So there's step 1 for Piper.
Both players with good draws here. It was Amulet off the top for Aiden. It was Young Wolf off the top for Piper. And it looks like a Cord is the follow up.
It's pretty
Things are
good.
getting very interesting now because has access to a land drop, has access to plenty of mana, and now a couple creatures to convoke as well. This has been a nice turn for Piper trying to dig out of it, staring down Primeval Titan and Valakut.
The awkward part about this setup for Piper here is she is a little low on life. So, we can say tap the 2 creatures and 3 lands to go get another copy of Young Wolf, and that sets up the quote unquote infinite chain where
Hmm.
we can just bounce them off each other to draw cards. But on 8 life and now fetching to
Right,
7,
right.
we're not going to be able to do that many times.
So interestingly, it could be is that a Dryad Arbor? This could be
Oh,
all
yeah.
enough to just ping down board too. But okay, Dryad Arbor has hit the battlefield for Piper. Nice fetch there.
Dryad Arbor just, looks like you could, if you looked from maybe 10 feet away, you could easily tell that's a creature, right?
Especially in the back there. Yeah, the classic Dryad Arbor. But hey, I love seeing Dryad Arbor in modern. It's a fun card. And the fetch for Dryad Arbor just always leads to good gameplay moments like this one where Piper is trying to find a way out, and it's just a kind of every card counts, and that's a way to get an extra one.
Hmm.
An
Interesting that we didn't
interesting
chord
draw.
for. I wonder. Interesting that we didn't chord for another copy of Young
Yeah.
Wolf. Now this is post board. It is possible that maybe there might only be one Young Wolf left in the deck. I don't know if that's the case, but okay, we're gonna fire off the chord now. Looks like
Okay.
so. This
Interesting.
looks appears to be a chord for 1.
Yep.
And again, if there is a Young Wolf in the deck, this will sort of set up that chain
So
where we can bounce them off each other. Go ahead.
can Piper deal with the Primeval Titan this way? Or is it just
No.
draw until you try to draw and try to find? So it's a question is, is Piper just trying to combo here, or does Piper have ways to interact with the board while she's going through this?
If she is going for the second Young Wolf here, I have to imagine she's just saying, okay, I'm going to give myself 5 looks to try and find the Blood Artist.
Hmm.
And yeah, because the Young Wolf has to sack to put a counter on the other Young Wolf, and they kind of just sort of bounce off of each other for a little bit. So yeah, I guess the awkward part is even after all of this, she will only be left with 2 lands and 2 untapped creatures, which means she can't chord for the Blood Artist, so that could be a little awkward. I believe picked up a copy of Wall of Roots, which will be mana neutral in terms of Chord of Calling, because you tap it, you cast it for 2 mana, and then you can use the wall to pay for Convoke plus the green mana. So doesn't add mana when it comes to Chord. So we'll have to see what her plan is here as to what she's going for.
Yeah, this is a really tight spot here. And if you look down at the bottom of the screen here in round six, 10K Team Showdown Team Trios here at NRG Championship Series in Indianapolis, you can see that Carter Steichen picked up the modern match, or I'm sorry, the Pioneer match over Connor Mullally 2-0 with Nib Delight. You've got Grayson Nimitz up 1-0 over Will Kruger in the standard seat. So this is a huge moment here. Piper Powell, if she's able to find a way to win this game out of this spot, will put her team on the board in a much needed position.
Yeah, I can't quite get a good look of at what Piper is looking with, but really at this point, just kind of needs to find that blood artist. I don't really think there's anything else that's going to get her out of this spot because the Primeval Titan you have to presume is just going to present lethal. It is
Think-
currently a 4/4, which means if we killed it, we'd have to use Yakmoth 4 times, and we're only at 4 life, Corby,
Right.
so that can't really do
that,
that.
that one won't work. And it's a cord in hand, but just one short of having the bodies to tap to go get that blood artist from the board. So this is a really tough spot for Piper, I guess, trying to
Oh,
figure
she
out.
did draw the cord.
Yeah, trying
Oh,
to
so
figure
she's
out
just
what
one
there is
short.
here. Yeah, so trying to figure out if there's maybe anything you can get. You mentioned there may or may not if there's not any more young wolves, you can't afford for that for one. I don't even you getting dorks to block isn't really where you're wanting to be either right now. So this is a really tough spot for Piper, and the longer she thinks about it, the less I think there's going to be an answer to find.
Yeah, I mean, there's a Besiju, I guess, which can Pop the
Yeah.
Valakut, maybe, but I don't really think that's
Oh,
gonna buy you enough
okay. A
time.
soul cauldron off the top now.
Hmm,
If you
does that
needed
do
some more
anything?
options, I don't know. I'm not sure if it would here.
So,
Certainly
hmm,
opens up a whole new line to think about, which is why the Golgari Yawgmoth deck is such a, and I guess playing against Amulet Titan too, right? These are two decks in Modern that require a very high level of
yes.
precision, I would say, right, to play optimally. And you're watching two players pilot them very, very well right now.
So many different things to think about. What speaking of things to think about, maybe if there's okay, well, I believe if that's the case, I think that the standard match might have just finished. So yeah, looks like
All right,
Grayson
well,
Nimbett's gonna take the match over Will Kruger, I believe, and that's why the
yeah. Whether
players
Piper
are done.
would have found a way out of that or not. And look, chat is deep into the thoughts, the lines over here. So we're with you. Nothing more fun than talking through Amulet Titan lines, am I right? Or Yawgmoth lines. All of these just wildly complicated modern decks. But yeah, great match there. We got to see some fun ones and team taking it down. That was a fun match here. In round 6, we are going to go to an interview. It looks like coming up. But yeah, Devin, that was we saw both players sort of go very deep, and we saw just kind of even if it didn't work out, what the possibilities of both of those decks were in modern.
Absolutely. Like you said, just a ton of different things to think about with all the things that, like the lines that you have to go through with the Yawgmoth deck, and it being the way that the deck is constructed, it just has so many different options at all points. And we do, I believe, have the interview lined up here for you. So see if we can go down to the booth here. And congratulations on the win. Talk to me about that last match
Thanks.
there.
Yeah, this is my third time playing Phoenix today with Niv. It's kind of gone like that. Like, granted, he missed a lot of more Phoenixes than my previous opponents, but post board, I feel great about my plan, bringing in Ashiok's counter spells and just keeping him off Ledger Shredder for that long really helped. Just you know stem the tides until I can resolve my bombs. So feels very good.
Well, yeah, that was certainly a great one to watch, and you've obviously played against Phoenix a ton with the deck. So what? How did you end up with what you're on this weekend? What was the where you look at a format where we've seen a lot of
hmm
movement and headlines over the past few months, and you came with something which has been kind of making its way into the format, but is
Yeah,
not
it's starting to
dominated
make
it.
waves online.
Yeah.
So I've actually been playing this deck since RC Dallas last year, back when it was bad. We didn't have any Pillage Log, Beanstalk. It was infinitely worse then. And so I just the reps obviously account for that. Um, but I think it's in a really good position right now with Vampires, Amalia, and Phoenix being the most played decks.
Mhm.
I love my Vampires matchup. The Phoenix matchup, once you get understand the plan, it feels very solid. And the Amalia, it's play dependent, but I feel comfortable there. And it all lines up that this 80 card pile of a mishmash of multicolored spells that looks clunky, uh, it's just powerful enough, versatile enough, and we have answers that line up well with the prominent threats. So I think it's well positioned, and it's so much fun to play. So
Absolutely. Especially, you have Bring to Light and so many different things that you can tutor for at every stage of the game. So you feel like you do have a lot of different options and a lot of agency there. One card that I see has been picking up a little bit of steam recently is Ancient Cornucopia.
yeah.
And it's a card that I hadn't seen a lot previously, but over the past couple of weeks, I have seen it pick up a lot more.
hmm
How do you talk to me about that card? How do you like that one?
Yeah. So it was my first time playing with it today. Actually, I picked them up at the booth. Shadow Energy.
Nice.
Yeah, right. But it's a card that it's been fine for me. Having the extra acceleration, mana fixing has been nice. I've gained upwards of 12, 13 life in a game with it. Uh, Granted, I've stabilized in a lot of those, and that's life gained after stabilization. But I think it's a card that definitely fits what we're doing, especially now that we've moved off of being all in on Niv Reborn to
Mhm.
like the Fable. It fits much more with our generic mid-range plan. So I think it's a great addition, and I love being able to just be able to cast a 5-drop and against Control or Phoenix have counter backup. It really allows us to set up a lot more of those lines.
Yeah, very strong. Well, you all are now, I think, X and one, right?
Yes, we are 5-1.
Heading into the last round. So, don't know what we're going to happen from here. But how are you feeling with how your team is, where you're at right now?
Feeling great. So myself and our modern player Aiden showed up without a third. We saw Grayson tweet out morning of that he didn't have a team.
Oh wow.
So yeah,
There you
we're kind
go.
of flying with this, but it's been great. Looking to get Grayson back-to-back team champs. So
Yeah, I guess that's what we've been talking all day about, how fun the team events are and how much that's part of the experience. And it looks like you all are having a very memorable event with your team that came
absolutely.
together this morning.
And even though we just met, yesterday, talked a little bit, he's been a blast. It's been a lot of fun, the three of us, and obviously, it's been going well.
That's
Love
awesome.
that. Well, thank you so much, man. Thanks for taking the time to
Yeah,
talk to us.
thank you
And
guys.
good luck the rest of the way today.
All right, appreciate it.
Wow.
All
That
right,
was pretty
welcome
good.
back. Yeah, that was great. Welcome back into the booth, everybody. Corbin Hostler, Devin O'Donnell here at the NRG Championship Series in Indianapolis. We are having a great time watching these modern and pioneer and standard matches with you. It is a lot of magic, a lot of different formats, and a lot of fun. So we appreciate you hanging out with us on this Mother's Day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Before we go ahead and let you go towards the next round, we want to bring up a couple of things that we would like to discuss here. Let's go ahead and first take a look at the 2024 leaderboard. These are players who have been performing very, very well at all of our events. You see Dom Harvey at the very, very top. Like I said, everybody's actually playing for first place this time, Corbin, because Dom decided not to show up this weekend, and just a slew of names that we've seen over the course of this weekend and many weekends past. Connor Mullally, who we just saw on camera. Mae French, like you mentioned, took
Mhm.
down yesterday's event. I'm sure she's going to be skyrocketing in the leaderboard. We saw Cliff a little bit earlier. And what these three players in yellow, what their names in yellow means is they are already qualified for our end of year championships, which you see on your screen. Steven Dykeman, who was our champion last year, and then you have Matthew Hoey, Sean Gallagher, and Dom Harvey, who have won previous Showdown events. Now, not only do you get a bunch of prizes and a qualification for the end of the year championship, but Corbin, what else do you get for winning a Showdown?
Yeah, this is a really cool one, by the way. You might have seen some of these at your tables if you've been out to any events, but you can get a custom token courtesy of Inkling Customs. All Showdown winners will receive it. You can get the one you want. It's amazing. It is a great token, literal token of your winning, but it's so much fun to have something that commemorates a big, meaningful moment for you later on, and nothing's more fun to have it in a game of Magic than a custom token that you get for winning these. So we love having this available with these series. It makes it a lot of fun. It really makes every weekend feel like a big deal. Building towards something towards the end of the year, you get to take these prizes. It's not just a Magic tournament for one day, and that's it. So we really enjoy everything that we have at these, from our sponsors like Ultra Pro to as well as the Inkling Customs. It's great.
Absolutely. So I believe I think there is about 10 minutes left in the round. So, keep that in mind when we go. I think we're going to try to take a little bit of a break here before we get to the next round. So, maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so, grab some popcorn, grab a little drink, grab a snack, and we will be back not too long with the next round. So, see you then.
All right.